Storytime with Bubba.
Hi kids, today we're going to be reading Warmth in the Snow by MoonlightKnight. The golden glow of her miracle slowly faded away as she stood up. Frida blinked away the sting from the yellow light as she adjusted back to the cool darkness of Ariandel's chamber. The sound of the bulbous father's ragged breathing and occasional sob were the only found sounds of life in the chamber, and she moved slightly for the warmth water and rag she prepared. Taking it up slowly and wringing it out, the woman began to wipe the blood from off Ariandel's black feathers. "Thank you, Frida," the father whispered through the heavy breaths. Frida continued without responding to him, feeling herself get choked as the cloth grew redder and redder. As she stood above the tub of water, she looked down at the cloth and felt her own guilt rise as the red fabric sunk to the bottom. Looking up to Ariandel's, she brushed her hand against him as she circled to the front of him, his vessel set aside, now saturated with his blood. She was glad she could get close to him. Pressing into him, she buried her face into his feathers. Ariandel's gently put one of his arms against her back, and she enjoyed feeling the rise and fall of his chest as she listened to him breathe. In the beginning, the man's body always surprised her as she got used to the physical contact with him. The way he always smelt like dust, how soft his feathers were. The father always was so warm, even with the snow around him. Another thing that she didn't expect was how soft his skin was, even with his scales and nails. Frida found her face burning from more than just the warmth of his body. She was glad she left her hood and cape where she usually sat outside the room. Letting her hand slide down to his thigh, she looked up for any signs of protest from Ariandel. Lowering himself down slightly to make it easier for her, he pressed his face against the top of her head. "Not keen on waiting for the night?" he asked, almost teasing in the way he spoke. Would thou wish to wait?" Frida asked, letting her hand slide up far enough to meet her feathers. "If you don't want to, no." His low chuckle was cut off by a gasp when she slowly dragged her hand down over the feathers, covering his member. Squirming against his bonds, he softly grounded his hips forward, smiling, her face still against him. She began to push his feathers aside, tortuously slow. "Ah, Frida," he breathed gently. He grasped at the woman's dress and began to pull it up. Frida pulled back, only to let him take it off completely. She didn't mind the cold much, even as she stood with her bare chest in front of her monstrous lover. Pressing back into him, she reverently pushed the feathers covering his cock aside and began to stroke his length. Taking her into his arms, Ariandel straightened up into his chair. After being placed in his lap, Frida continued to rub her hands along him. The woman moaned as his hand came up to rub her nipple. Pressing her lips against the tip, she began to rub her fingers up his member as she moved her tongue into a circle of motion on him. Frida removed her trousers with Ariandel's assistance, letting it fall to the side of the chair. The woman quickened her pace as her vain companion slid his hand over her thigh. Brushing against the entrance, squirming slightly at his touch, Frida grounded herself back and forth, trying to get any sort of friction. In response, Ariandel slowly ran his finger forward over her clit, causing her to stop, her hips thrust. Frida's face felt like it was burning as she looked up at her lover. She could feel the warm feathers of his thighs as she pressed up against him. She found Ariandel's heat intoxicating as she stroked him. She could tell he was getting close. She bit her lip as she moaned, trying to keep her quick pace on his cock as he rubbed her clit. With a sigh, her misshapen partner came, his cum dripping down her body as she continued to press against him. Taking her into his arms, Ariandels brought them both forward again, playing with her breast in one hand, and he put his head between her legs. The woman put her legs over his shoulder, running his tongue between her lips and over her clit. He worked one finger inside of his small lover, circling her clit with his tongue. He gently pushing his finger in and out, staying alert for any signs of discomfort. Frida laced her fingers through his hair, enjoying their closeness and savoring how warm he was as she was pressed against the snow. Arcing her back as he quickened the movements of his tongue, she came. Both breathing deeply, Ariandels picked Frida up and held her against him as he leaned back into a sitting position, burying her face into his feathers. She held on to him. With his hands on her back, she could feel with her bare form every rise and fall of his chest and the heat of his body. The end. Thanks for watching Storytime. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content. Also, feel free to comment below. Check us out on social media, and have a great day. Thanks.